We stopped mid-sentence, not because the thought was finished, and not because anyone interrupted. The sentence simply lost its momentum. The words slowed, then stalled, as if the moment itself decided that continuation was no longer necessary. There was no signal to stop, no clear reason to pause. The sentence didn't end. It just didn't go on. At the time, that felt acceptable. The pause wasn't awkward. It didn't demand attention. It slipped naturally into silence, the way unfinished things often do, when no one insists they be completed. We stopped mid-sentence because nothing pushed us to finish it. The conversation adjusted. Another thought took its place. The rhythm recovered without difficulty. From the outside, it looked like a normal exchange. No one appeared confused. No one asked what had been left unsaid, which made the pause easy to ignore. I assumed the rest of the sentence was implied, that the direction was clear enough, without articulation. Sometimes it is. Not every sentence needs to be finished, to be understood, or so I told myself. We stopped mid-sentence, because finishing it would have required commitment. Once a sentence is completed, it takes shape. It becomes something you can respond to, something that can be questioned, challenged, or remembered. An unfinished sentence avoids that. It remains flexible, unfixed, protected from reaction. At the time, that flexibility felt useful. It allowed the conversation to move on, without settling anything too precisely. Precision can be heavy. It anchors meaning. It limits interpretation. Stopping mid-sentence kept things light. The moment didn't ask for clarity. It accepted ambiguity without resistance. So we let it. We stopped mid-sentence, and nothing suggested that this was a loss. There was no immediate consequence. No misunderstanding surfaced. No tension followed, which reinforced the belief that the sentence hadn't needed to be finished at all. But unfinished sentences don't disappear. They linger. Not as words, but as direction. They carry intention without conclusion. They suggest without confirming. They remain present, without being accountable. I noticed it later. Not as a memory of what was said, but as a sense of incompleteness that didn't attach itself to any specific moment. The sentence returned, in situations that felt adjacent, but not identical. Moments where clarity would have helped, but wasn't available. Moments where I realized that the sentence we stopped had been doing more work than I initially understood. We stopped mid-sentence, and in doing so, we postponed definition. That postponement felt neutral at first, even considerate. No one was forced into a position. No one had to respond too quickly. But postponement has weight. It doesn't remove responsibility. It delays it, and delays have a way of becoming permanent. The sentence was never revisited, not because it had lost relevance, but because returning to it felt increasingly unnatural. The moment had passed. The context had shifted. Restarting would have required explanation. Why now? Why this sentence? The longer it remained unfinished, the harder it became to finish it at all. That's the quiet risk of stopping mid-sentence. It creates a gap that doesn't announce itself as one. From the outside, everything looks complete. The conversation has moved on. The interaction has ended. But internally, something remains open. I realized then that stopping mid-sentence is not the same as choosing silence. Silence can be intentional. It can be deliberate. It can signal restraint. Stopping mid-sentence is something else. It's a suspension, a moment where intention exists without expression. It leaves interpretation to context, to assumption, to whatever follows next. And whatever follows next rarely carries the same clarity as what was about to be said. We stopped mid-sentence, and I didn't think much of it. At the time, it felt like an adjustment, not an omission. The conversation didn't resist. It flowed around the pause, which is often taken as evidence that nothing important was left behind. But importance doesn't always reveal itself immediately. Sometimes it shows up as a pattern. I noticed how often I stopped myself before finishing a thought, how easily sentences trailed off, when precision felt inconvenient, not because I didn't know what I wanted to say, but because saying it fully would have required standing still. Completion demands presence. It asks you to remain until meaning settles. Stopping mid-sentence allows movement to continue without that settlement. I had mistaken that movement for progress. We stopped mid-sentence, and the world didn't react. No one asked for clarification. No one pointed out the gap. which made the pause feel justified. But silence doesn't confirm understanding. It often just confirms tolerance. The sentence remained unfinished, and because it wasn't challenged, it stayed incomplete. I don't believe every sentence needs to be finished. Some thoughts are better left open. Some moments benefit from restraint. But this wasn't restraint. This was a decision shaped by ease. We stopped mid-sentence, because continuing would have required choosing words carefully, accepting how they might land, allowing the moment to become more defined. We chose not to, not explicitly, not consciously. The sentence stopped, and the moment moved on. Everything functioned as expected, which is precisely why it took time to understand what had happened. The sentence hadn't been completed. It had been avoided. And avoidance, when it's subtle enough, can look exactly like discretion. We stopped mid-sentence, and the fact that nothing followed made it feel complete. Only later did I realize that the absence of reaction was not confirmation. It was simply the space where the rest of the sentence never arrived.